Hello everyone, Francis Walsh here with the Personal Finance Diaries again, and today we're going to be looking at FSAs and particularly surprising products that fall under the remit of the FSA scheme. So just a little refresher for anyone who maybe doesn't exactly know how FSA eligibility works. A flexible spending account essentially lets you set aside pre-tax dollars for qualified medical expenses. So how it works is at the start of the year, you will allocate a certain amount of your monthly earnings through your employer into one of these accounts, and then those dollars get put aside free of tax into this account, and then at that point you can use that money to buy certain qualifying healthcare expenses. So they typically cover things like prescriptions, co-pays, deductibles, and medical equipment. Anything that is for either the prevention or the treatment of a genuine medical condition. Now they don't generally cover things like general wellness products, vitamins, supplements, that kind of thing. But as with a lot of things concerning the IRS, the rules in this area are a little bit fuzzy, and there are certain exceptions, or there are things that do fall under the remit of the FSA that you might not necessarily expect, and that's essentially what this video is about. So we're going to have a look at a few of them here. So the first one is sunscreen. Certain types of sunscreen you can buy with FSA money. A lot of people don't realize this. They feel like sunscreen is a travel expense, something you buy on your holidays, but it does prevent sunburn and hence skin cancer. So therefore it does qualify as a medical expense in some cases. Now, it does typically have to be above SPF 15 so that it's an effective protection against conditions. Essentially, if you look for sun cream that is above SPF 15 and that is on the approved list of FSA eligible items. Now, I'll cover those approved lists in a little bit more detail at the end of this video. Depending on where you shop, it can be easy to figure out what qualifies as an FSA eligible expense and what doesn't. So I'll cover that in a little bit more detail later on. A second product we're going to look at is acne treatment. So acne cream that you put on your face to treat acne. A lot of people regard these maybe as just beauty treatments or skincare. And generally speaking, those kinds of products don't qualify for FSA eligibility. However, if your dermatologist diagnoses you with acne and recommends a specialist acne treatment such as benzoyl peroxide or salicylic acid treatment, something like that, those are available under the FSA. You may need a letter of medical necessity, which is something your dermatologist in this case can give you, but doctors can provide them for various types of treatments depending on the condition that you have. But yeah, these are another thing that you can potentially get with your FSA dollars. Now, over-the-counter medications, these weren't always available under the FSA. There's been a couple of changes that have been brought into the scheme since the CARES Act in 2020, and this is one of them. So you can get common over-the-counter medications like in the picture here, ibuprofen or acetaminophen, and previously that wasn't the case, but it is now. So this is particularly handy, I think, because these are products that people do tend to have in their homes, and they're obviously very handy for general purpose pain relief. And look, most households year on year are going to be using these, so it is handy to be able to get them tax-free through the FSA. Next is your first aid kits. You can get full kits. You can get the items that go into them. So your bandages, your wraps, everything you see in the picture here, you can buy them in bulk. This is particularly handy if you have kids. Obviously they're always getting into scrapes and whatever, and they're getting little injuries. So it's always handy to have these kinds of things around the house. Many people don't realize that these fall under the FSA because, again, they just seem like general purpose household items, but they do. So it is handy to be able to get them tax-free under the FSA. Pregnancy tests. Again, a lot of people assume FSAs only cover things that happen after you get pregnant, but pregnancy tests do qualify for the scheme. Also, ovulation kits and fertility monitors are typically fully eligible. and they can be digital or traditional as long as they're for medical fertility purposes, and there are a lot of approved items like this, but as long as they are for medical fertility purposes, they do qualify. Baby monitors. So again, these are just regarded kind of as a household item or something that you just buy as a kind of a general good, but they do fall under the remit of the FSA. And again, it's something every parent needs. So there is no point to be spending your taxed income on it if you can get it with your FSA money. So in general, some tips I have for shopping with FSA. I would recommend shopping on FSA specific websites. I did kind of refer to this at the start, but it is difficult to know what items qualify for the scheme. And even in the cases of the items I've mentioned here, certain items in each category will qualify, whereas others won't. And it's not always immediately clear which ones do qualify and don't. If you shop somewhere like Amazon, they don't always do a great job of separating their FSA eligible goods from their non-eligible goods. And they also might not accept your FSA debit card at checkout. So if you use a specialized store, it just makes it much easier. You can just see what's eligible and what's not, and you can avail of your deductions at checkout. So it makes the whole process a lot easier. FSA store is one that I recommend. I've used it a lot myself. And it just makes things really easy. Everything on site is eligible, so you don't need to worry about figuring out eligibility. And they accept debit cards at checkout, so there's no claim back process to worry about with submitting receipts and all that kind of thing. If you don't use a debit card, and even if you do, it's still handy. But especially if you don't use a debit card, you need to keep your receipts and your documentation. Your FSA administrator may get in touch looking to examine one purchase or another, and you don't want to be in trouble in terms of auditing or not being able to write off something. So it's just better to be safe than sorry. Keep all your documents. And then, if you're shopping in store, I think this third point is probably relevant. Just make sure you check for the label and just make sure it's in the right section. I know shops like CVS and Walgreens these days have extensive FSA eligible sections. And if you prefer shopping in store rather than online, this can be really handy. But just to make sure that what you're buying is FSA eligible and that you can make the savings on it. Because a lot of the time, as I was saying, there'll be two similar products and one might be FSA eligible and the other one won't be. So there's no point paying the extra 30% or whatever it is on the non-eligible item if the eligible item will do you just as well. And then my last tip, and this really is a big one, this is a big use it or lose it area of personal finance. This is a great scheme if you're sensible about it, but you do need to nominate how much you're going to put into your FSA at the start of the year. And if you overshoot it, you may end up not being in a position to spend your money wisely by the end of the year. So I suppose first step here is to just kind of be sensible when you're deciding how much you're going to put into your account. Don't overshoot it, but obviously make sure you have enough, but don't overstate it or you'll end up wasting the money. And then also just to kind of be conscious of it as the year goes on, just to make sure you're using it, to make sure you're not spending money on things that aren't eligible when there are eligible substitutes and everything like that, because at the end of the day, this is a money saving scheme, so there's no point having it cost you money. So that's all from me, and I'll see you in the next video.